Welcome back to the Lockwood Chronicles. My name is Larissa, and today we are going over the 8 books that I read in October. Even though we're in November now, I had to rep one last little ghosty shirt, and this is from Julie and the Phantoms. I miss that show. I'm so sad that I got canceled, but I also made it a crop top, and I cropped it a little too short, so I don't wear it often, and I forgot to wear it in October, so we're wearing it now. It's so cute. It's also freezing in my house right now, so we need a toasty little sweatshirt. I thought about wearing a leather jacket over it too, just because I am a cold girl. Well, hello. Thank you for coming back, or if this is your first time here, hey. Welcome. I read 8 books in October. October was my busiest month socially by far this whole year, I feel like. On top of that, reading 8 books. That's crazy. Oh, geez. Need to do a manicure today, so we'll just ignore that. Let's do some stats first. Read 8 books. The total pages that I read were 3,870 pages. And then my average rating this month was 3.63. No 5 stars this month either, which it's okay. I've begun to be more picky about my 5 stars because my 5 stars are like, it shifts my whole personality. And the more you read, the more you decipher what you like and don't like in a book, as well as like what works for you, what doesn't. The first book that I read this month was The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I thought they were going to be duologies, but apparently there is going to be a third. I think there's some novellas out too. I haven't read the novellas. This was for my romantasy book club that I'm a part of. I unfortunately had to house sit or pet sit for my parents that weekend, so I didn't get to participate in the discussion, which I'm so bummed about. I won't tell you about the second book, but the first, because obviously spoilers, but the first book, it is about Aurea and Rain, and they're our main characters. And Aurea lives in a world of vampires, and she is human, but she has been taught to fight and whatnot by her vampire king foster dad. There are trials. So she enters into these trials because if you win the trials, you get a wish. And she wants to merge her powers with her adoptive father or something. At first, I thought it was going to be like kind of creepy and like that he was more of a daddy than a father, but he is strictly a father figure. Just was a little sus. Aurea and Rain kind of strike up a bargain and deal just to help each other out in the trials. Rain is so sweet. I love him. The second book I really, really enjoyed. It is definitely still more of that political intrigue with it, but also still heavy on the romantasy, and I love to see it. The second book that I read this month, which is also my highest rated book this month and was definitely my favorite of the month, and that was Fantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is so good. Highly, highly, highly recommend. I loved it. This is regarding Ophelia and Blackwell. Ophelia is our main girly, and Blackwell is this phantom. So let me explain it a little bit better. Think of this as like a spicy Danny Phantom, and that's who Blackwell is. Ophelia inherits her family's magic after the passing of her mother. Her and her sister find out that there are some debts that her mother was in, and they are about to like lose the house. All of a sudden her sister enters into this magical haunted house mansion that at the end you get a gift if you win it, if you're the winner. Her sister enters in and she's like, what? You don't even like magic. You want nothing to do with this place. What are you doing? So in order to save her sister, Ophelia enters in to try and get her to back out of it or like forfeit. But in order for her to do that, she has to get through, I think, to level 7. Is it the 9 circles of hell? 7 circles of hell? Whatever. She has to get through to a certain amount in order to meet up with her sister, and hopefully her sister's not dead at that point. So check the trigger warnings for this. Also, I think the author did a great job with the OCD portion of this, since our author did mention at the end of the book that she also has OCD. Seeing that in a character was really eye-opening as well as educational as to what some people go through when they actually have diagnosed OCD. I loved the romantasy, the romance portion of this. I loved Blackwell and Ophelia's thing. The only thing I didn't like that kind of knocked it down a little bit for me was the constant push-pull between them. Like, they both were being like, this isn't good for us, we can't be together, and then they would back off, and then all of a sudden something happened, they would go back, and then it was just very like push-pull. And I found that repetitive and annoying. Also, I know I said it in the vlog for this one, I just really hate when authors write about women just tripping over their skirts or over nothing. And I get it because it happens, but just like pick up your skirt. Hike that baby up to the bikini zone and run. It's so common in so many books, and I absolutely hate it because underlying tone of women being weak in that aspect that they can't run without tripping because we're just so delicate and dainty. I know that's not the intention of it, but it really irks me because that is the intention of other books or movies and stuff. And that just like, it only happened a couple times, but it happened a couple times more than it was necessary, and it really bothered me. And I know that is such a specific thing, but I hate that. Ophelia enters into this, and she ends up having to make a deal with Blackwell in order to help her get through to the end, or like to the point where she can meet up with her sister. She's also like a necromancer too. That's part of her magic system. And it was such a good time. I had so much fun with it. I think it is going to be a series, and I can't wait for the second book. Then the next book I listened to, and that was Wisteria by Adeline Grace. And this is the third book in the, I think it's just the Belladonna series, and the first book being Belladonna. So this follows two other characters, and I don't want to get into it too much, but in case you haven't heard of Belladonna, it is like a gothic fantasy historical fiction type book. If you like murder mystery, death as a character, I personally liked Belladonna first because I personally like that couple more. Not to say that the couple in Wisteria was not great. I really do like them. I just prefer the other ones. It was good. It was funny. Our girlie in Wisteria, she is so sassy and I love her. She just like takes no crap, and I love that. Our MMC, he just gets so angry so easily and flustered and mad, but the way that their friendship kind of forms, it's a marriage of convenience, and the way that their friendship forms, learn to appreciate and respect one another. I liked that growth of it. The next book is Hollow Heathens by Nicole Fiorina. And our main characters are Fallon and Julian, and it's dual POV regarding like a magical town that only lets you leave when you have finished your function. Fallon is outside of this town. She goes back because she gets a letter from her grandfather and he's not doing well, and she wants to, and he's like begging her to come and back and help take care of him. And so she heads back, and when she gets there, he's just like, I didn't want you to come. What are you doing here? And she's like, you're so silly, Grandpa. Then there are these masked men. So there's like also witch covens. I'm explaining this horribly. There's witch covens in this town. And yes, they do have access to today's technology, but it's not reliable in their town. So people come to this town, but it's hard to find, as well as like, again, you can't leave unless your purpose has been served. It is in today's, but it's also like kind of old school too. It's just, it's cool. I really loved the town's atmosphere. It's kind of creepy and gothic and all of that. Yes, there are witch covens, and the Hollow Heathens are cursed, and there are 4 guys that walk around in a mask, because it is rumored, if you look upon their face, you will see your greatest fear and you will die. Fallon and Julian keep having this pull towards each other, and everybody is trying to separate them. Fallon's confused as to why, because nobody is telling her anything. Honestly, if somebody would just sit down and like explain to her what is going on, it would help her so much. But nobody does that, and they just make decisions for her, and I found that very frustrating. As well as the other witch coven is like trying to get her to join, and she's like, no, I'm not interested. And then they put her through the initiation. Julian is such a king. Like, he tries to keep their relationship secret because of a lot of stuff, and she's just like, he's just embarrassed to be with me. And again, if somebody would just explain to her what was going on, then it wouldn't be so bad. But nobody talks. Nobody communicates in this town. But I did not like that the witch coven did not get her consent, and they caused a lot of harm in her life because of that, and there were no really repercussions or major repercussions for that, whereas when Julian did something like, this is the worst possible crime that has ever been committed, blah blah blah, and overreacted, and it really makes me mad because I just feel like there was no really big repercussions for the people that were actually doing a lot of harm. I really liked it. I feel like it was way too long though, and it kept kind of dragging out. And I did like the tension between her and Julian and their chemistry together. However, it could have been a lot shorter, and I think I would have enjoyed it more. It just felt like it dragged on way too long. And also, like, the miscommunication of everybody in that town. Somebody just let her know, fill her in on what the vibe of the town is. I know this is a series. I don't feel inclined as of right now to continue on with it. Again, I liked this one, but I'm also okay like leaving it where it was. The next book I read was Deadly Occupants by Mads Rafferty, and our main narrator, POV, is Blair. And Blair and her 3 other roommates go to a haunted house for their like housewarming roomie get together. They end up bringing a ghost home with them who is now haunting them. It's super eerie, good for creepy vibes, but it's not super scary. So if you don't really like super scary stuff, I'm not like a horror person, so the vibes were there, but if you are like really into this genre, you probably won't like this book. The ending was kind of meh. And again, it gave the vibes necessary. There's a little bit of a romance in there too. There was just like a lot of subplots that I didn't feel were necessary. And I read this with Julia when I went to go visit her, so if you want to check out that blog, you definitely can. We read this book together, and we both kind of agreed that it was meh, like kind of anticlimactic. It wasn't what I was expecting, like the ending. It was fun, it was eerie, it was great for the spooky season, and if you really don't like really scary things, but you want to like get in that eerie, creepy mood, this was a good book to do. The next book that I read was The Book of Witching by C.J. Cook. This is following, the narrators are Clem, Aaron, Allison, and I forget what the other narrator's name is. It's a non-linear timeline. Allison's in like the 1500s timeline, and she's getting accused of witchcraft. And this kind of shows the political aspect and how devastating, just how the patriarchy and men in general just like couldn't own up to their own thing, so they would blame everything on witchcraft and blame women for it, and how they would make it so women could not get out of it, like they force it. So this was actually researched and following one of the witch trials that actually did occur in the 1500s that was documented, and it's so sad and heartbreaking. As for today's timeline, Erin is Clem's daughter, and Erin goes hiking, and all of a sudden Clem gets a call that she's in the hospital with severe burns, her boyfriend is dead, and their other friend is missing. Clem is trying to piece together what the heck is going on. Erin's in a coma, like an induced coma. So Clem and her ex-husband go and try to find what the heck happened. There is the Book of Witching is there. It's just a book. It's a kind of a creepy book. I didn't really understand the point of this. To be completely honest. If you really like the history of witch trials, I think you will really like this because of the historical aspect of it. And what is done to Allison is absolutely horrendous and terrible, and an important part of the world's history. Today's timeline, I didn't really see the point of it. Honestly, if we could have just gotten a whole book of the 1500s portion, that would have been sufficient. But I didn't. The tie-in to today's timeline with the historical timeline, it was cool, but again, I didn't really see the point of it. It kept me engaged enough to keep reading. I could have DNF'd it and been completely fine not reading it. I did listen to a lot of it on Spotify, and that helped. And again, it kept me engaged enough to want to finish it. It was okay. And a lot of people really love this book, so I think it's just a me problem. But I really didn't see the point of it, besides just like education of the historical aspect. The next book that I read was Anathema by Carrie Lake, and the main characters of this are Maveth and Zavander. Those are definitely some choices of names for characters. Maveth, she's kind of like an outcast in her town. As a baby, she showed up in like a little bassinet with a black rose on her, and people are like, she's kind of witch-like. If you ever did anything wrong, you would end up being brought to the Eating Woods. And the Eating Woods are these creepy woods that surround the town, and you would be shoved in there, and then something would eat you. And Zavander lives in this magical part of town, or different city, different universe thing, and different part of the Vale. He is collecting some infinity stones, if you will, in order to break his curse. And he is cursed with sable fire and like being able to control it. However, it is consuming him slowly. And his brother also got cursed with it. because Voldemort wanted to eat him or something. I forget what that actual guy's name, but the way they described him, he sounded like Voldemort. Zavander is pulled to wherever Maveth lives through the veil and going to kill her, and so he can collect her Infinity Stone. He is unable to unalive her. Then something happens with Maveth and her sister. Maveth ends up crossing the veil into Zavander's land, and some things happen. Zavander comes and saves her, but he's really grumpy about it. I loved this book. I thought it was so fun, and I really liked Maveth's attention to befriending his family and friends. Just a really great character. She didn't annoy me except for like one spot. Zavander was just grumpy, but so misunderstood. And I really liked him as well as a character, and I loved their tension and chemistry together. I wish it would have been a little bit faster. Like, I don't mind a slow burn, but I wish we would have gotten it a little bit quicker. And it left off on a cliffhanger. The second book doesn't come out till 2025. One thing about this though is I've read a couple books, and I forgot to mention above which one's done it now that I'm thinking about it. I can't remember. But it's dual POV. However, Maveth is first person POV, whereas Zavander's is third person POV. And I don't like when authors do that. Just pick one or the other. Either all third person or all first person. That was just my little gripe with it. I can't wait for the second book. I will definitely be reading it. I had such a great time with it. We gotta do this quick because this camera's already overheated like 5 times. The last book that I read this month was The Starling House by Alex E. Harlow. Or Starling House, not The Starling House, just Starling House. This is following Opal and Arthur. It's in a small town. Opal feels like an outcast. She doesn't feel like she has any footing. Her and her brother are living in a hotel, or a motel, because their mother unfortunately passed away in a car accident, and her mother was always just kind of like all over the place and not providing a very stable environment. And so now Opal she's a decade older than Arthur, so she has been taking care of him since he was little, and everything she does, she's doing get out of this small town, because they really don't have any roots there. Everybody just like treats them as outcasts, and Arthur is very intelligent, and Opal, she's like, if someone's gonna make it out, it's going to be Arthur. And there is Starling House, which is kind of a haunted-esque house. Nobody goes in there, but there is a caretaker or a warden there, and that's Arthur. Oh, I'm so sorry. I kept saying Arthur. I meant Jasper. Jasper is Opal's younger brother. Arthur is the warden. My bad. So if anybody's going to make it out, Jasper's going to make it out. Arthur is the warden of Starling House, and everybody is warned away from Starling House. You can't really even access it. Opal has been pulled to Starling House since she was a child. She has had dreams and nightmares about Starling House, about its floors, about everything, and she just feels so pulled toward this house for no really apparent reason. And then one day, she clutches onto the gate, accidentally pricks her palm, bleeds all over it, and then the gates swing open. So she just goes right in. She just goes right up to the front door. She offers to help Arthur clean Starling House for some extra income because, again, she's trying to get Jasper out of here, send him to a better school to get education and whatnot. The house also has a little bit of a personality, and I really, really love it. But, like, there's also a curse on this town, especially on Starling House, that Arthur is trying to protect the town from, and it is a thankless job. I liked it a lot while I was reading it. I don't think it will stick with me though. I won't remember too much about it or think about it often enough. I really love this cover though, so that's enjoyable. I felt like the ending could have been done differently. I don't know. It just was a little bit more anticlimactic than expected, especially with all of the things that they were battling. Also, the miscommunication between Opal and her brother and about what his plans were for the future was, they could have definitely talked about some things. Both Opal and Arthur described each other as like ugly, crooked teeth, nothing special, but like very homely vibes that they described each other as. So it was weird to picture them. I enjoyed it a lot, but yeah, definitely won't think about it too often, except this cover is gorgeous. But it has been on my list to read for a really long time, and I read this for a book club that I'm in as well. My camera is continuing to overheat, so we're gonna wrap this up here. So those are the 8 books that I read this month. It was such a great reading month. Did I have a lot more on my TBR? Yes, I did. Did I get to them? No, I didn't. Check out my November TBR because some of them did transfer over from my October TBR that I am excited to get to. All in all, like a pretty good reading month. A lot of gothic, I wouldn't even say dark academia, just more like gothic vibes, and I really love that in this type of year. If you want to stick around and check out reading vlogs, other book content, feel free to hit that subscribe button, hang out a while, like this video, and let me know what your favorite book of the month of October that you read. With that being said, respect others, respect yourself, and do something amazing with your day. Thanks, bye!